talk about young shakes. Chicago 2 represent. Just change. And this for my city.
Hey, I do it for my city. Dog, I don't plan on going down. If he think I'm going down, then he gone first round. For my city. Dog, I ain't never been.
Hello, and welcome to the first episode of Rice Fame Group's Chat with Champions. Today we have our, our very first guest, and we're very honored to have her. Is Coach Pat Kendrick from Xavier University of Louisiana, and her Gold Nuggets won the Red River Conference Women's Volleyball Championship this year. So congratulations, Coach.
Thank you.
Pat, can you please give us some background on your coaching career?
Well, I went to George Mason University in Fairfax, Virginia, and I played volleyball, ran track there for 4 years. And then the woman who was my head coach my senior year asked me to be her assistant when I was finished. So Kim Sears was the head coach, and so she asked me to be her assistant. So I was her assistant for 2 seasons, and then she stepped into an academic coordinator position. So I became the head coach in 1985, and I worked 1 year with the George Mason men's volleyball team in the early 90s, but primarily I was the head coach at George Mason from 1985 to 2014. After that, I became the director of volleyball operations at Virginia Tech for 2 years, and then decided to get back into coaching and came to Xavier in 2017. And so I've been at Xavier since then.
Oh, okay. All right. So you've been at some major programs before you came over to Xavier. How was that transition from NCAA over to NAIA?
Well, the rules are very different for recruiting. And so the NAIA is less restrictive. You have a little bit more freedom in terms of contacting recruits and going out to see them play. And, you know, definitely the biggest difference, I think, in terms of the rules, it's a lot more lenient with the NAIA compared to the NCAA. So it was, I mean, I'm still every once in a while, my NCAA brain will kick in and, you know, I'll realize, okay, that's not a rule at the NAIA, you know, keep moving forward. So.
Okay. So have you had to deal with the NCAA's rule on the transfer portal? I know some other NAIA programs in other sports have had to deal with rivals on the NCAA side as far as that goes.
Well, as far as the portal goes, you know, we monitor who's on the portal, but it actually helped us out a couple of years ago. One of our players, Samira Blair, was at Howard and went on the NCAA portal, and we saw her, and she ended up coming to play for us. And so as far as the portal goes and Xavier, it's definitely helped us out.
Okay. So you won the Red River Conference Championship this year. How have things been with your program over the years since you've been there at Xavier?
Well, we've won, Xavier as a whole, since even before I got here, had won the Gulf Coast Athletic Conference title, I guess, 6 consecutive years prior to me getting to Xavier. And when I got to Xavier, for the 4 years that we were in the conference when I was coaching, we didn't drop a match. And I think we played best 3 sets out of 5, and we didn't drop a match the whole time I coached in the Gulf Coast Athletic Conference. And I think during that time, we may have dropped only 3 sets the entire 4 years. So we were very dominant in the conference. And so moving to the Red River, you know, we were excited, you know, for the change, and, you know, we're successful this year as well.
Okay. Wow. So being what may coming over to the Red River Conference, was there a big difference in play? Was the competition more stringent in the Red River Conference, or Was it about the same?
Well, there are definitely some teams in the Red River that were stronger than what we faced in the Gulf Coast Athletic Conference. For example, Our Lady of the Lake, who we beat in the conference final, that match went 5 sets. And when we were in the Gulf Coast Athletic Conference, all the finals we played in, we won in 3 sets. So definitely more challenging in the Red River.
Okay. Um, so you went to the NAIA National Championships this year as well. How did things go there?
Well, we ended up against Life University out of Marietta, Georgia, and they were ranked, I guess, number 11 or 12 at the time. We played them nationally, and we played them close in some sets, but we ended up losing in 3 sets in the first round.
Okay. And so with this being your first year in the Red River Conference, and that's quite an accomplishment, just coming to a conference and winning against established teams. Are you looking to have an improvement to say as far as recruiting, as far as getting talent? Now that you're in that conference, are you able to use that as a talking point?
Well, we definitely talked to recruits about the fact that we moved conferences and won the first year. That certainly helps us. We're still and always have been going after the top students around the country and around the world, actually. We've got a pretty diverse team. And so, it definitely helps us to say that we moved conferences. We've got some strong competition. We won. Come join us. We're trying to build a nationally ranked program. So, yeah, for sure, it definitely helps us.
Okay. Well, can you tell us about some of your athletes?
Well, like I said, we've got a pretty diverse group. Kennedy Wade, who was a sophomore on the team this year, she's out of Florida, and Kennedy made first team all conference. She made the all region team. She was the most valuable player at the conference championship. And so Kennedy's really come around. She's a 6 rotation outside hitter, meaning she doesn't get subbed out in the back row or the front row. She plays all the way around. And so she's done a really good job for us. And Linda Mungai is from Italy. Linda's a junior on the team. And Linda came to us from Italy with a lot of experience. And she also made the all tournament team, and just very good defensively, very good passer, and certainly helps us in some of the tougher matches for sure. We had Vivica Price-Spraggins. Viv came back because of COVID. Everybody kind of got a mulligan for the 2021. I guess it was the 2021 season academic year. And so Viv came back as a graduate student and was first team all conference. I think she holds the record right now for Xavier for career hitting percentage. So it was really great to have her back. Taylor, I guess I would be remiss to not talk about Taylor Mcgee and Stella Deneva, who came to us as outside hitters, but ended up playing on the right side for us because we needed that position filled. And both of them were all conference performers and had a really nice season. We've got a really good setting core. Samira Blair, who I mentioned before, transferred from Howard, and this was her second season with us. She was first team all conference. She's all region. And so, definitely did a lot for us this season. Emmy Riglioni, also from Italy, as a setter as well. And Emmy had a really nice season, her second year with us. So we've got a pretty diverse group. We've got a deep group. Kendall Mack from Georgia. Kendall played some right side for us as a freshman, but it ended up being a mainstay in the middle for us this year. So we were really lucky that we had a pretty deep team in terms of some positions, and all the players were able to step up and play regardless of who we were playing.
Okay. So what are some of the selling points that you use to attract student athletes to Xavier? It is an HBCU. It's a small HBCU in the NAIA. And so what are some of the things that you tell recruits, to have them come to your program?
Well, you mentioned the HBCU angle, and so we're one of the top 3 in the country. So that's definitely a selling point. U.S. News and World Report has ranked us number 3 behind Spelman and Howard. So that's definitely a good selling point for us. Academically, Xavier's very strong. The pre-med program, Xavier's put more African-American students through med school than any other school in the country. So that's a big selling point. A lot of our players are bio pre-med or something in the medical field. So that certainly helps us quite a bit. We're in New Orleans. New Orleans is a selling point as well. So, the Big Easy, a lot of people like to come down here, but in terms of just being a part of the culture of New Orleans is also a big selling point. We're close enough to the French Quarter to know what's going on, but we're not in the middle of it. So we've got a nice distance away from it. So it's a nice neighbor, I would say. And the fact that, the athletic department, the school itself isn't so big that you kind of get lost. It's kind of a family group. All the sports support each other. The coaches support each other. The athletes go to each other's games. And so it's a nice mixture of, really smart students with students who want to have a good time and a great location. And so there's a lot of great history here with the campus. And so it kind of sells itself a little bit.
Okay. So how are the crowds at your matches? Do you have big crowds, and what's your venue like?
Well, our venue is very nice. It's actually one of the best in the NAIA, and even some venues that I went to when I was at George Mason and at Virginia Tech, Xavier's got a nicer venue in terms of spacing and that sort of thing. Because of COVID, we haven't been able to open up and have as much of a crowd as we want to. Some of the matches that we have played, certainly in the last season or so, have been just participants only. So it's kind of hard to judge crowd part now that, for example, basketball season has started. And so they're allowing crowds back in. Actually, today's one of the first home games that the students have been back. So we'll see, about the crowd kind of picking up. But it's definitely not as much as it used to be because some of the COVID restrictions. And we get a decent crowd. We get a lot of student athletes coming. We get coaches coming. We try to involve some of the local high school teams. And of course, the players, their families and friends show up as well.
Okay. Well, with the less stringent rules with the NAIA, and being that I was an administrator in the NAIA for a very short period, are you able to attract a lot of fresh high school freshmen who contact you? And generally, how early do student athletes start contacting you about coming there?
Well, I've received emails from freshmen. I guess they're the class of 2025, I think. I think that's the class of 2025. So yeah, it's kind of hard to keep track of all these all these 20s, but yeah. So we receive information from high school freshmen, and because we don't have the strict recruiting rules, I can respond back to them right away. And so when I go out recruiting, I can, if I wanted to go watch, some of the freshmen play, there aren't any deadlines or restrictions. There are no dead periods or quiet periods where I can't leave campus to go recruit. So yeah, we will start contacting, or at least getting information like questionnaires and that sort of thing from freshmen.
Okay. I know I used to give workshops on college recruiting to high school coaches and some athletes. If memory serves me correctly, because it has been quite a few years since I've done it, I believe the most stringent rule that the NAIA had was that you couldn't talk to an athlete while they were in practice. And I mean, is that pretty much the case?
Well, I don't know at this point, like I said, I don't know at this point how long ago you coached, but I don't believe that's really a case right now. Although I think probably most coaches would realize that you shouldn't interrupt an athlete while they're in the middle of their practice. It's I think it's just kind of courtesy to the other coach to not disrupt them. And even at a tournament, if we go watch someone at a juniors tournament, AAU tournament, USA Volleyball tournament, and they're in between sets or their team is getting ready to play and you're talking to them, and which we would be allowed to do, but it's just bad form, I think.
Right. Okay. So, like, as far as incoming recruits, without going into names, what's your incoming class looking like right now?
Well, we've been in contact with some really good students. And
Mhm.
so, again, one of the things that we're allowed to do at the NAIA level is we can have students come to campus and actually put them through a practice. And so
Mhm.
that's kind of what we're doing, not this weekend, but the next couple of weekends. We're going to have some people on campus. We can have tryouts. So the month of February is going to be pretty busy with us kind of looking at talent and actually having them come onto our campus and us putting them through a workout. So that's really good. So and the athletes are kind of from all over the place. We've got some international students we've been looking at. We've got students from California. We've got students from Texas, Indiana, kind of a little bit of all over the place, Georgia. So yeah, so it's if we can get the group that we're targeting, we should have a really good recruiting class.
Okay. So, um, making a bold prediction, are we talking about national championship caliber?
Maybe at some point, I think our goal right now is to, again, we need to win the conference in order to make the
Mhm.
NAIA championship. So that'll certainly be a goal again. And then seeing with us the beefed up schedule that we have playing against some stronger competition, can we knock off some of those higher ranked teams and get into the top 25 rankings? Because that'll
Mhm.
certainly help us if we win the conference for seeding into the championship. So we've got some other goals kind of ahead of us right before. Of course, the dream would be to win a national championship, but I think we have some goals,
Mhm.
attainable goals ahead of us kind of before we get to that point.
Okay. So, do you play many NCAA teams? Um, I know that some NAIA programs play, some matches against some from time to time. How about for Xavier? Is that the case?
We play the NCAA Division I schools kind of locally. There's quite a few around us in this area.
Hmm.
And, within 2 or 3 hours, I would say there are quite a few. And so we'll play them in the off season. So this being the spring semester, we're looking to play some NCAA schools in the off season. During the regular season, there's certainly enough NAIA schools and certainly enough NAIA top ranked teams that we try to build our schedule up with them. So the NCAA teams who we would be really interested in playing, usually their schedule's pretty booked and they're not playing any IA schools during the fall regular season. So in the off season, we'll play NCAA.
Okay. So, and this is a hypothetical. Um, if especially since today there is more emphasis being placed on the HBCUs. I've kind of brought his name up to other programs with what Coach Sanders has done over at Jackson State and making the nation more aware of HBCUs and the quality of athletes who actually compete at HBCUs. Um, if someone was to, or if an organization was to have like a tournament that mixed various HBCUs together, whether they be NCAA, NAIA, USCCA, or any other ones, NCCAA, would you be open to participate in that? And under what type of situation, as far as like if it did not um, affect your record, would that be something you'd be interested
I think the time for that, for something like that, for certainly for it to not affect our record would be in the off season. When we
in?
play, if we go to Tulane down the street or University of New Orleans down the street in the off season, it doesn't affect our record. It doesn't affect their record. And so it's just some good competition for us to face. I know during this upcoming season, and it happens to be the same weekend that we're holding our tournament, Edward Waters down in Florida is trying to hold some kind of HBCU tournament. And it looks like, from what I could tell, looks like they kind of have a mixture of teams from NCAA to NAIA. So, some teams are trying to do that during the fall. I think it's difficult for us to do it in the fall because, like I said, our goal is to try to build our schedule up, not only with, of course, our conference competition, but nationally ranked NAIA competition. So there's not a whole lot of time to throw in a whole tournament like that. But during the off season, certainly there would be time to do something like that.
Okay. And so, moving on from that, can you speak more about the academics at Xavier? We know that you're ranked number 3 in the country. And you did mention some things about the pre-med program. Can you tell us about some of the other programs there, for those who are not familiar with Xavier, so that they might consider going to Xavier, not even as an athlete, but maybe even just as a student?
Well, our pharmacy program is one of the top programs in the country. We've added a couple of academic programs, like physician's assistant has been added. Our engineering department is adding robotics, in terms of kind of looking ahead into the future type of robotics. And actually, one of our pharmacy students is actually considering changing to engineering so she can get into the robotics program. Our business program is very good, psychology, our art program. I mean, we've got a lot of good programs. And again, it's not a big school, but the academics are really strong. We've got very experienced faculty, and the class sizes aren't too big. We have the resource center, and that's not just for the athletes, but for all the students, whether it's writing, reading, resource center, the biology department, the chemistry department. And so they have extra help on campus from the Student Academic Success Office, the SASO office. So academically, there's a lot of help here, and the programs are very strong. And like I said, we kind of talk a lot about our bio pre-med because it's the one that's kind of gotten the most publicity, but the other programs are quite strong as well.
Okay. And so, I'm about to kind of wrap up here, but can you give us a few words for those, once again, who are not familiar with Xavier, but who want to come and play on the next level and might want to consider Xavier?
Well, just to give you an idea of what we're kind of looking for, we're looking for players who, if they can play on not just their high school team, but if they can play on a club or AAU type team, if they're going to camps. I would encourage students to go to camps during the summer. And I know I think it actually is on some level favorable for students to play different sports, whether they run track or whether they play basketball, or, some just focus on volleyball. But I think kind of being a well-rounded athlete is a good thing. And the grades, academically, you got to be strong. You have to have a good course curriculum at your high school. And, if you want to take AP courses and that kind of thing, the important part is not just to take the AP courses and get a D, but it's better to take just a regular course and get an A, in terms of trying to get your GPA up. Xavier doesn't necessarily look for, okay, you've got to be in this range for a test score or a grade point average. They kind of look at it as a whole. What are you doing at your school as a whole? They kind of balance between your GPA, your test scores, your class rank, and that sort of thing. And every student, not just athletes, but every student who applies to Xavier is automatically considered for an academic scholarship. And so you could get anything from $2,500 a year, or you could get the Board of Trustees scholarship, which is close to $36,000 a year. So there's a big range in academic money for regular students. And so I think that's a big selling point, that Xavier probably has more academic money than any school I've ever been at least it seems that way anyway. And so you know, there's a lot of good things about being a student at Xavier. Plus, the degree means something. You know, if you have that on your resume and you show up to a place of employment and you got a degree from Xavier University of Louisiana, it means something.
All right. All right. Well, Coach, it's been a great conversation, and I definitely learned a lot more about Xavier. I was familiar with Xavier, but you know, had no idea about the volleyball dominance that it's had over the years. And we definitely wish you much more success in the future. We definitely look forward to seeing you in the NAIA National Championship soon.
That's the plan.
And we also look forward to interviewing you once again when you win your next conference championship.
Thank you.
So, would you like to give anybody any shout outs?
Well, I don't know who's listening. I don't know who, you know, I'll just say shout out to my players, you know, study, come to practice, ready to work.
Okay. Well, I do want to give a shout out to Mr. Ed Cassier, who helped set up this interview. He was a great resource, and he's been a great help. And I look forward to talking to both of you even more in the future. I really enjoyed this interview, and I hope that others who see this interview will enjoy it as much as I did. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right.
Cause I feel like I love her so much, like I owe her so much, but supplying her touch, I will always respect her, I will never neglect her. Bet you hear her naming like every one of my records. No, I'm not stunting, ain't no future in your frontin', right? Gotta get this money, watch me get it all night. Planet flying top flight, higher than space stations. That's why I gotta grind, cause I need it and I hate waiting. Really, I was debating, didn't think I could make it. Now that I know I'm capable, y'all can love and I hate.